I believe that Jim Harbaugh's flirtation with the NFL is a direct result of his desire to move Michigan and their football program along in the evolution of the sport. Get further commitments as far as investments into the staff, get further commitments as far as investments into a collective and what's going on with the NIL. Because
good afternoon, everybody. That was Joel Klatt on the Joel Klatt Show, audio yesterday. Do you believe it? You believe what Joel Klatt is selling, what Jim Harbaugh is? The chance that Jim Harbaugh broke his word, his NFL word, to leverage Michigan into the modern era of college football. Good afternoon, everybody. That's where we're sitting here on this Tuesday. Are you buying a little bit of that after what happened yesterday? Interesting time in Michigan sports and Michigan football. Clearly, with Michigan getting the great news over the weekend, and then yesterday with scores of players saying that they're going to return to U of M and not declare for the NFL. Michigan is stacked. Nobody's going to say anything different than that. I mean, that's something that we can all agree on. Michigan is absolutely stacked with their football team for next year. They get their head coach back, and the president makes the announcement yesterday, and today's the day to look to the future and say, wow, man, look at Michigan was able to get this done. What does it all mean? And then it is looking back at the process and say, hey, was this the way to go? And is this going to happen again? So a lot of different things going on with this. I don't think you have somebody that tries to explain what's going on with Michigan football and Jim Harbaugh and his new contract. I don't think you can just do it really nice and neat and be like, yep, Jim Harbaugh, he was Michigan had a really good year, so he was going to get a new contract. So he worked at it, had to leverage Michigan a little bit by showing some interest in the NFL so he could sweeten up his deal. That was part of the negotiations, and here we are. Ready to go in 23. That's as nice and neat as I can make it, but I don't know if you believe all that. I don't know if I believe all that as we sit here right now. It's one of the things that we're asking you about today. And so, you have any thoughts on it, you can put your thoughts, type them up, and we'll look at them. You can jump on in on Spaces. That's the way we're doing it here on Good Afternoon Michigan Football. We're live weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And as a guideline of how we're going to go today, we'll look at the effect now that Harbaugh is, I don't know if he was ever gone from the fold, possibly leaving the fold. He's back in the fold. We'll look at recruiting and the effect that it could have on the very top players in the country. There is a possibility, it keeps getting talked about. I'm going to put this into the rumor category. If you like rumors, well, you'll just have to stay tuned for that one. Coming up in 20 minutes, a transfer big-time cornerback, possibly the teaming up with Will Johnson in the Maize and Blue. We'll get to that rumor coming up ahead. But we'll start with Santa Ono moving up the Santa rankings and moving in front of Santa Claus on this January. You got to get your Santa joke ready. You got to have at least one. And that's my Santa joke. So it happens yesterday. We did our show, and it was really a celebration of Michigan football as the Wolverines get all of those different players back, 6 or 7 of them, and, to bolster their roster and to defend the Big Ten championship again and be the favorite in the Big Ten. One of the favorites in the country. A chance of going back to the college football playoff. I was just referenced Joel Klatt. And last week or the week before, there were those way too early top 25s. Well, we didn't know about all the players that were coming back. I had Michigan at number 2. This was before Keegan, Zinter. I knew Sandra still was going to be Jenkins. I mean, right. All of these different players. Corum. I think we did it. I don't even know if we knew Corum was coming back when we did the way too early. Maybe. But I had Michigan at number 2. And, just listening to Klatt, he had Michigan at number 2. And I don't know what time he taped that yesterday, if he knew the mother load of players that were declaring that they were going to come back for Michigan or not. But, besides Georgia, Michigan looks like, they're the team. If you're going to unseat the Bulldogs from a three-peat. Facts. That's going to be, they say that the offseason narrative, that's the offseason narrative. Can Michigan knock Georgia off their pedestal and win the national championship? Can Michigan get back to the college football playoff? Can Michigan get to the championship game this time? And can Michigan knock off Georgia? That's what we're going to be talking about all off season. But yesterday you had the news with Santa, who gets on Twitter, Santa Ono, and shares that he got off the phone with Jim Harbaugh. And so he wanted to share the great news that Harbaugh was going to remain as head coach at Michigan. And Ono said it was fantastic news. And he communicated it to Warde Manuel, the athletic director. I was like, they're cutting out Warde Manuel there. That's on a lot of people's minds. And that's something that I'm going to address here today about Warde Manuel, however that ended up getting done. And then you'd say, well, do you have a signed contract? And are you sure this is the way Jim, is Jim on the phone telling you this? That's what Santa was saying. But then Harbaugh himself, as he has been doing on Twitter, puts out a tweet, and he says that I'll just read it. I love the relationships that I have at Michigan. Coaches, staff, families, administration, President Santa Ono, and especially the players and their families. My heart is at the University of Michigan. I once heard a wise man say, quote, don't try to out happy. Go blue. That is from the Ira and Nikki Harris family head coach at Michigan. Pretty definitive. Harbaugh coming back. So, time to celebrate, load up the cannons, toast Harbaugh and everything else. But then you're like, well, what about next year? That's one of the big questions. Is Michigan going to be back in the same spot? And the answer to that is maybe. We haven't seen the contract to look at a buyout. If it's a big fat buyout, it's going to at least, depends what NFL team is there. The NFL really wants to. They can get anybody they want. But it also, if it is a pretty big buyout, it signals that really have to pay through the teeth, and that Jim Harbaugh is more likely than not to stay around, even if he does go out there and wander again for a season. But, that's on people's minds. That's one of the top things that was being said. And the second thing was about Warde Manuel and his role at Michigan when he's not mentioned, and, there's and how that all played out. So I've got my thoughts and opinions on all of that. I want to hear from you as well on those things. The thing that I look at when it comes to Michigan is that Harbaugh staying as the head coach at Michigan is a really good thing for the football program. It's a really good thing for Michigan now that he is back. They have a really good team, and that he is stirring the ship. Whatever you think about him, however they got here, anything else, I don't really think that's a debate. Having Harbaugh there for what he has done these last 2 years, not talking about the first 6 years, talking about right now, where it's at, right here, right now, and what he has done, it's really good. Now, the part that might not be so good is about the appearance of all of this. And Harbaugh, who last year at this time said this was a one-time deal, and then he interviewed with the Broncos, and you say, look, this guy's a big liar. All right. I think that's a fair thing to say. because Harbaugh's image, I think, does take a hit. Now, how much with this NFL interview? That's what you have to decide. He said it was a one-time thing last year, and the thought from, I think, Michigan fans, Michigan, our own Josh Henschke, that this was the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, that this was leverage, that this was Harbaugh not getting everything that he wanted in this contract, and Michigan needs to be pushed, pulled, and dragged into the new era of college football. They couldn't just rely on the old Maize and Blue helmets and the uniforms and the stadium and the academics and winning the Big Ten and getting to the college football playoffs and rewarding players that went to Michigan with big NIL deals for those that stayed, ended up getting compensated. It needed to be even more. Harbaugh needed to drag Michigan into this situation, and the only way that he could do that was say, I'm out of here. And he had to go and break his word and these contract negotiations. Now, how the fans buy that, how the media buys that, how the players, how the recruits all buy that, I don't know how you buy that. I have sat here for I don't know what it's been, last 2 weeks, feels like 3 weeks, feels even longer than that. And it felt, still does a little bit, distasteful with Harbaugh. I got to see a report that he's on the phone with the Carolina Panthers owner. Well, that's not an interview, technically. What were they talking about? The price of tea or something? I don't know. Whether, hey, Jim, are you using gas in your house or are you planning on going electric? That seemed, even though it wasn't an interview, it seemed kind of like an interview. And then we had Harbaugh, like, what was it, a month ago? He's enthusiastically coming back. And then he was like, I don't know the future, but I think I plan on coming back. It was a little wild. But I don't know. You may have been, we've all at some point, some kind of negotiations, we've negotiated things. I was talking to somebody last night, said, hey, this is big boy negotiations. And if you're not getting what you want, you got to pull out all stops. That's what big boy negotiations are all about. Putting something out there. I remember in radio, they always said, really, when you know your value, you got to tell them you're out of there. You got to be ready to threaten to leave. You got to be ready to hit the door and say, all right, this is what I want, or bye. And then you find out, where you sit. And, in this situation, I don't know. Maybe that's what it was for Harbaugh. He was like, this is what I need in a negotiation. This is what I want. Ward wasn't giving it to him. They kept going back and forth and back and forth. And Harbaugh said, all right, damn it, I'm out. I'm going to be interviewing with the NFL now. Whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. That's where we're at right now. Like I said, it didn't have a good unmute. I think I'm back. All right. For what happened for a second. New Year's Day, I was on for the first 20 minutes. And I think I'm back now, Sam. People are asking about the audio. Is it back? Give me a thumbs up or not. I think I'm back. Let's go. There you go, Andres. I am back. On New Year's Day, I sat here, came out after the loss to TCU, and for the first 15 minutes, I stared into this camera and I talked about the Michigan loss. And the mic was out. I looked over finally, I had people, joining the show. Everybody's like, nobody can hear you. The mic's off. First time that happened. I don't think it was a coincidence that it was after the TCU game. I must have looked, I'm slamming the desk, punching the screen. I'm over here, acting crazy. And then I look over and I prepared for that. And now those are my thoughts. I've gave all of my feelings out there to the TCU game, and I look over and I will say, okay, what are the people saying? I'm a nutcase. They're right with me, and everybody's like, nobody can hear what you're saying. So I had to start the show back up. Well, where was I? Well, it's about whether you believe this or not, that this was a negotiation tactic, if it was leverage. Do I believe, and I'm going to read some of the feedback and see where the people are at with this. Do I believe that Jim Harbaugh, all along after this year, even though the team looked pretty good and what he has coming back, and I know that he likes J.J. McCarthy, I believe that. But do I believe that he went into this and thought, all right, this is what I'm feeling with the contract. Not all about the money, but I want to be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. Not all about the money, but I want to be the top 5 coach in all college football. Not all about all that, but it's reasonable because he deserves all of that. And then he went down to the buyout. I want only a small buyout because I want that power. I don't like that part. And that was going to be a negotiation side at Michigan. And then this part about this name, image, and likeness package that was going to lure in the high school players. Because what Michigan has going right now, you got to give them a thumbs up of players that are on the team to stay around. Those that were going to stay around that are on the team were going to be compensated. That was the word in the offseason. And when the rubber met the road this weekend, Michigan's collectives came through. And you have to give them an A+ for Blake Corum, the guards. I mean, right down the line, being able to bring all these guys back. Great job. And so the final step in that is this a way, without saying that you're paying the players up front. Can we just get down to semantics? Say you're rewarding the most highly rated high school players are going to get rewarded financially before they ever take a snap because they have proven themselves at the high school level and they're going to get paid for that. However you do that, however this NIL, and that was supposed to be part of the negotiations here, and Harbaugh wasn't getting what he wanted. So he hired an agent, and the agent was like, you got to threaten to leave. That's the only way they're going to listen to you. Are you believing that? The reason that I'm having let's say I have a hard time, there's a possibility that it could be true. There's many other ways before you fold your arms and say, I'm out of here if I'm not getting what I want. How about your agent goes on and, starts slipping some of these NFL guys, starts slipping some of these college football, starts slipping some of these reporters about, Harbaugh wants to stay here, but they're holding him up on a name, image, and likeness package. Harbaugh would like to stay here, but they're holding him up, and there was very little of that. Now, Josh Henschke had a little bit of that. Maybe some other reporters, I don't read everybody else. Henschke had some of that, but there was none of that. And then it just here's the NFL. That seemed like it was the last card to play. And any way that one was going to go, it wasn't going to be smooth sailing because you look, even if it's all true, you're breaking your word. And a lot of people are like, really? You did this last year, and we had to believe that it was you that decided to come on back, not the Vikings that told you. And now we're ready to believe that, no, you were just all doing this. It's a big ask. I'd say this from Harbaugh and Michigan people, and if this is exactly the way it went, and if this is how it went down, it's a pretty big ask. You're asking Michigan fans to say, everything that Jim Harbaugh does is he has Michigan. He's got Michigan number one. He's looking out for Michigan. And all this stuff, the way it looks, don't believe that what everybody's saying in the media. You don't believe the naysayer. Don't believe any of that. Don't believe that Jim lied. And if he did, it was for Michigan. That's what we have to believe. This is Jim Harbaugh doing it all for Michigan. So I don't know, do you believe that as part of it? This part about the president and Manuel and Harbaugh all being on the same page. There are a lot of people like, screw Warde Manuel, get him out of here. Obviously, he didn't get along with Jim Harbaugh, dating back to 2020 when he cut his salary, and Harbaugh still is got an axe to grind. Look, I don't know if that's true or not. Here's a couple things that I do know. That back in 2020, that the sentiment for Jim Harbaugh was to replace him. Not from crazed Michigan fans or a lunatic friend. This was Michigan, overwhelming majority, I'll say a majority of Michigan fans were ready to move on from Jim Harbaugh. And if Jim Harbaugh was replaced in 2020 by Warde Manuel, even the people that were in his corner and loved him and said, no, you'd have kept him, it's not like they could have been, oh my God, this is the most ridiculous thing. No, he was given every opportunity there. But Warde Manuel stayed with him. And Warde Manuel should be credited with that. Why would you credit him? He kept him around. And look what happened in this gigantic turnaround. The majority of people would not have done that. The majority of people did not want him to stay around. And Warde kept him around. And look what's happened since. Now, the other part about them not getting along and how whatever hard feelings there are with this negotiation and with what the president had to say and didn't include, he had to go and call the athletic director or whatever else. These guys need to mend the fences right now. You have to have the president and the athletic director and the head coach all rowing the boat in the same way, all being on the same page. There can't be any hard feelings between Warde and Jim. These guys kind of have to have open communication. If they can't sit down in a room and get together, and however you say it's then somebody really does have to go. And that needs to happen as fast as possible. I think the best result is for Michigan to get together and have Jim and Warde, whatever it is, work out those differences. If Jim's ego, like some people think, it was, his feelings were so hurt because his salary was cut in half that, he's just, can't listen. Sometimes you just get, you're against somebody and you just can't go back because of your ego. Well, then they got to make a move. So that's where I'm sitting right now. And I just wanted to give one other part about this. If Jim Harbaugh over the next month or two, and we have 2 weeks till. In fact, we have the 2 weeks tomorrow is the next National Signing Day. And there's some 5-stars out there. We're going to get to some of those guys' names. And there's a 5-star next year. And if this holdout, if this flirtation was really leverage with Harbaugh using the NFL to get what he wanted to pull Michigan into the new era, he's playing chess, not checkers. There's that possibility. And if that comes true, then I'll have to change my opinion and say, wow, Harbaugh, man, you're really something, man. You really did it. Look at you. And if that is the case, like Michigan's pretty close to the mountaintop right now. If Michigan gets an NIL package together that is going to attract 5-stars and top 100 recruits, that's the last hurdle. You're there, folks. Michigan is, how does it feel? You're on the mountaintop. And yeah, they'll have to go out and get to the college football playoff again and actually win the championship. Those aren't small things, but they're doable. But the future will never be more bright if this ends up happening. And I'll have to go back and say, wow, Jim, man, you really are the GOAT and the way you're doing this. But let me say that's not how, like I said, it's not how it felt. My approval rating right now of the future of Michigan football with Jim Harbaugh at the helm and him coming back is a 97 out of 100. What he's been able to do the last 2 years and have Michigan in the position that they are for next year is almost 100 out of 100. I leave a couple points out of there because one, you have what's going on with the name, image, and likeness. Now, maybe this is why this all went down, and Jim Harbaugh is pulling Michigan into the future, and I'll have to bump that up to a 98 or 99. And then we have him catching that level 1 violation with the NCAA. I don't know what all that's about. I don't know, with him hanging up the phone or, buying a couple tacos, a chicken sandwich for people. That's the other part about this. But if it's one of those things, is some technicalities, Harbaugh being a jerk on purpose because he hates the prove a point, he caught a level 1 I don't know. But that's why it's not 100 out of 100. And so that's where it's at. But this process for me, the approval rating of Harbaugh and Michigan on this process of getting this new deal done, where he's putting out tweets that don't sound like ambiguous. He's saying those who stay will be champs, and then the next day he's interviewing with the Broncos. I mean, that was very distasteful. And I give Michigan and Harbaugh a 30 out of 100. Now, maybe he was playing big boy negotiations, and that's what you got to do. I don't know. Some people feel pretty confident that that's exactly what was going on. Others are like, are you kidding me? Harbaugh could tell you to jump off a bridge. Well, look, if Harbaugh tells me to jump off a bridge and I do it and I don't get hurt, and I don't know. Bad analogy. Let's see what the people are saying about Harbaugh and the negotiations. And if you're just feeling like everything's great and that, Harbaugh is doing this all to take Michigan into the future. Richard doesn't care about the politics. He's just glad that Jim Harbaugh is back. And look, that's the easiest way to do things, Richard. Hey, all this, big boy negotiations, and he's NFL, and this guy's saying that, he's back. Let's see what Travis had to say. He did not enjoy Donovan's quotes, and M Live today seems to be upset Blake is returning and still wants his carries. So much for a team player. He also insinuated he will be off to the NFL next year. Travis, I did not see those Donovan Edwards quotes, so I'll have to look for that and see if I agree with what you're saying about you saying he seems to be upset. I'll read those myself to see exactly what he says. Account 22 is not agreeing with your assessment of those quotes, because he says Edwards said, quote, Blake was the missing piece we needed to win the Natty. So we'll see. And I'll have to look through those. I did not see them. So before I weigh in on that, there's your show for tomorrow. We'll talk about that. Andres weighing in, and he says Santa is legit. He was at UC not long ago. I think that's Cincinnati. That's where he was. He revitalized that campus environment and helped bring Clifton back to life. We love him here. I'm so happy he is continuing his work at Michigan. Scott says Jim Harbaugh is the best coach in Michigan football. Yeah. GFF says Harbaugh is a sought-after commodity within the college and NFL ranks. Hashtag period. Well, I don't know if it's a hashtag period. Nobody said he wasn't sought after. The part about him saying, I don't know if this one slipped by you, Gladiator, and how you're dealing with it. But the part where he said, I'm not doing it anymore. Some people take him at his word. Outside of Ann Arbor, there's the people that look at this and are like, what about what Harbaugh had to say? Hey, he's just like any other coach, maybe you could say. However you rationalize it. Again, what I think the best way to do it is like, he was trying to push something forward to get in a contract that's going to be the best for Michigan football, specifically the name, image, and likeness, to take that into the future. And the proof's going to be in the pudding. If he is able to do that and he's attracting, and that's what it was all about, then, hey, sometimes you do have to, and, it can be distasteful. And negotiations can end up being like that. You might have to MF somebody up and down, and you feel like they're your brother, and it's nasty and everything else, but then you get a deal done. And get that deal done, on both sides, but you end up getting it done. Now, I'm waiting to see if that's the way that it goes down. Like I said, I thought it was pretty distasteful over these past couple weeks, and not that I'm going to be sitting here every day and saying, "Oh, Jim was a fibber," or Harbaugh's. I'm going to let it play out. I'm going to have my opinion at the front. I'm going to see how it plays out, and then I'm going to see. I'm not every day going to be sitting here telling you that, well, I don't know about the coach. He didn't keep his word. We're gonna find out about that. And if it's the worst part, that he didn't keep his word because of, and he really did want to, because of his ego, and really did want to go to the NFL because he's, whatever you want to call it, arrogant, and thinks that the NFL should be throwing petals at his feet and offering him the moon and the stars to come back to the league because, damn it, he knows he's the best coach in the world. That's a hell of a, but that's possible. That's actually very possible. The punter says Harbaugh worked both the NFL and Michigan sides these few weeks without a decided outcome for himself. I think he loves Michigan and the NFL and will continue to weigh his options annually. That's fair. It's too bad you can't just split, or I don't know. Too bad Harbaugh, I think he wouldn't mind coaching an NFL team and Michigan at the same time if he could do it. As crazy as that sounds. And if there's somebody to do it, maybe it could be Harbaugh. I think we had that back. We're back. We're good to go. Yeah, we're going. Yeah. All right. Yeah. There we go. I appreciate everybody coming back and giving me the thumbs up. The Gladiator says Harbaugh's likely to leave after this season because of his affinity with Team 143. I don't know. I think if the buyout is substantial, that makes it more difficult. If he goes back with this fabulous team and wins it all, will there then be a team like, the hell with that? Let's do it. Here's the one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough. You got a million people out there talking about Michigan football, podcasts like this, everywhere. The one thing that does not get talked about is that there's really no coach like Jim Harbaugh, in that Harbaugh went to the pros, had the success that he did over the, whatever it was, 4 years, whatever it was, and then decided to go back to the college ranks. No coach does that. There certainly have been coaches that were great in college and that went to the pros and flamed out and went back to college, but Harbaugh didn't flame out. They would have hired him right back in the college ranks. He might have had to take a year off. He might not have. Somebody might have snapped him up right then. They certainly could have taken a year off and boom, he'd have been right back in there. That doesn't get talked about enough. I always thought that, at some point that he would go back. And I think himself, after the COVID year, now this is just me, like, this is not the way Michigan people feel. This is not the way that the people that feel like they've got the inside information, they're all like, no, that's not the way that it went. This is how I feel. I think that after the 2020 season, he didn't have an agent. I think that he was waiting for teams to call. When he got his salary cut in half, he was out there. It was the high point of the recruiting season. And Jim Harbaugh was waiting for one of those teams to call. Nobody was. And I do think that if the Chicago Bears would not have made the playoffs that year, that they would have called. And I think Harbaugh would have left. That's my feeling. No, I'm just giving you my feeling about that. Everybody that I've talked with that is close to Michigan and, they're insiders and all, they don't believe any of that. Oh, that's not what Jim Harbaugh was doing. Okay. And then last year, however you believe it, whether it was the Vikings that sat down at the table and are like, we're out of here. Or if it was Harbaugh, I was like, this isn't, whatever. However that went down. I mean, he had a foot out the door. He damn near took the Vikings job. And then this time around, if you're thinking like, nope, this was all a leverage play, it's pretty amazing. If you believe that, and a lot of people believe this, and this is actually what I think is being sold to Michigan fans. 3 years ago, nope. Jim Harbaugh had his salary slashed, came back fighting mad with Michigan, won the Big Ten, went to Minnesota, went out for that interview process, did not like what he is, said, nope, I'm out of here. His decision. This year, rang the bell again, beating Ohio State, getting back to the college football championship, and he wanted a new contract, and he went out there and said, wasn't getting what he wanted, and said, okay, you guys aren't going to give me what you want? I'm going to start interviewing for the NFL. I'm out of here. Bye. And then everybody, uh-oh, we better give him what he wants. You believe that? That's the Michigan. That's the Harbaugh. That is the Harbaugh narrative. Harbaugh's narrative. Michigan's narrative. I think it could be somewhere in between that myself, but that's it. I thought Harbaugh was leaving. Yeah, I did. Ono threw Manuel under the bus. Yeah, they need to repair that. Got to get that and have it come down. Doesn't the president have the power to fire Manuel? You don't want to get into that kind of situation. If you don't like it and there's irreconcilable differences between Harbaugh and Manuel, these guys got to get the work together. They need to find a soft landing for Warde Manuel. Find him another job. You don't want the president getting in there and firing him because then it just creates more of a circus. I don't know if you know this. People like writing and talking about Michigan. And this would just add. Can you imagine the couple days of if that happened? Andre says, how about getting that Big Ten commissioner's job? Well, nothing would be a softer landing for Warde Manuel than getting the Big Ten commissioner's job. That would be a nice soft landing for Michigan. Travis says we might have 10 players go to the NFL after next year. 23 is our quote unquote all in year for the Natty. Well, what you said here, Travis, might. It might be. And Michigan might be reloading. Michigan may be able to hit the transfer portal at their luxury. Michigan may be in play for big-time recruits. And we're ready to find that out. Here's one I have circled. Nicholas Harbor, 5-star. He's going to make a decision over the next 2 weeks on where he's going to school. If Michigan is able to land Harbor, this is good news for the Maize and Blue. Michigan, since the name, image, and likeness has taken place, where teams are offering up money to these guys. If Michigan, with their new philosophy, with this NIL that Harbaugh's put together, however they end up, looking at it, you're rewarding the top players in high school before they ever take a snap to be able to get them on campus. If Michigan is able to do that, well, then now Michigan, there's nothing stopping them. There has been things stopping Michigan along the way, namely rogue programs, programs that have been willing to, before NIL, to pay money. Fans didn't care. Half of the alumni cared. Nobody really cared. Michigan cared. They didn't play that game, and that hurt them for some of the top players, but they were still able to do it. But if they are able to, and we've been over that a million times, if they are able to get somebody like Harbor, then you're going to say, look at Michigan. There's nothing stopping Michigan. And then this next recruiting class, there's a quarterback out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Providence Day High School. His name, Jaden Davis. If Jaden Davis commits to Michigan this month or next month, that will also be a sign that Michigan is able to, not just a sign, they will have done it. They are in not only the mix for the top players, but they're getting them in an era of name, image, and likeness. And if they change their philosophy, how they're able to do that? I don't know. Semantics. Maybe they, have just decided that this new NIL deal is going to be for the top players in high school and how they're ranked as a composite. And once they get in, they immediately get paid, which is an easy way to get around. Hey, we're promising you the money. You can get around it. Maybe Michigan has decided to get around it. That's what we're ready to find out. And if that happens, I'm going to have to go back and say, man, Harbaugh, woo, look at him. That's what he was doing to get this. That's what people are saying. Michigan needs to get on the same page with their president, with their athletic director, and their head coach. I do apologize for people that were tuning in, and I know I've been all over the place. You know what happened is the day that I saw him where he put out it was after him talking to the Panthers, and even though it wasn't an interview, to me it's like, that's an interview, even though it wasn't technically an interview. And I'm thinking, Harp, that's, he's doing this where he could come off and say that he really isn't. He's gauging the interest. I think that he really did want to go to the NFL. I do think he has an NFL interest. But then when I saw him come out and use Schembechler's "Those Who Stay Will Be Champions" and then put his name and signed it underneath, I thought, oh, he's back. But then when I saw when he was interviewing with the Broncos and broke his word, then I thought, I was having a hard time holding the line. I thought he lied. But in my defense, negotiations can be nasty. Sometimes you have to do some nasty things to get who you want, to get what you want. Who starts at tailback next season? Well, I don't think it matters who starts at tailback. What matters is who gets the carries. And I think that they can split them up, like give each of these guys 18 to 19 carries per game. Teams pretty much rotate backs anyways. You can find, look, these guys were both great this year. I would look at it without, seeing what Donovan Edwards had to say or Blake Corum. Blake just wants to show they both want to win, I would say. Again, both want to win. Both want to get to the NFL. Blake wants to show that he can, get back to 100%. One thing that this next season is going to afford Michigan is, I could play running back in a few of those games against East Carolina, UNLV, and BG. The point there is that if they don't need to rush Blake Corum back, maybe the preseason will be Donovan Edwards. And if Donovan Edwards is running for 200-300 yards a game, I don't know how many, I'll guess that Donovan Edwards is the starter for the opener against East Carolina. That would be my guess because of Blake coming back from the knee injury and that they're not going to really need him. And really, so they start the Big Ten. So that affords you an extra month before you really have to get him in there. And then, if Donovan's going crazy, which he will against those teams right there, he could be the starting running back for the majority of the season. So I'll predict Edwards will be the starter game one. That's where I'm at with it. Okay. I want to tell you about the rumor. We need to get to that. you saw all those players that were coming back last year. I liked Trevor McHugh put up a nice graphic for Maize and Blue Review on Twitter. If you build it, they will come back. Like the great baseball movie, Field of Dreams, and you have the Michigan players emerging from the corn. And you see not only, Sandra Still and Corum, and as they come through here, some of them are kind of fading as they emerge as kind of ghosts through the corn. Great job there by McHugh. I really like that one. I use that one to tell you that you want to know what's going on with Michigan, all of this stuff inside. You want your questions answered. You want to know what's going on in recruiting up to the minute over these next 2 weeks. You want to get the early look at the 24s, basketball recruiting, athletic director drama. Be in tune with Michigan in 2023. Join the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com and make that happen. Subscribe to the Maize and Blue Review. Now, this is in the rumor category, and it is a cornerback from USC. And his name is Damani Jackson. And there's a lot of Michigan fans that think that Damani Jackson, they're trying to get him to come into Michigan. He was interested in Michigan, and he's good friends with Will Johnson, but ultimately he went to USC, and Johnson went to Michigan. Now, Damani Jackson, what are we sitting here on the 17th? So less than 2 weeks ago, Damani Jackson put out a tweet that said his hands were up in the air. Like, I don't know what's going on. What's up? Or I don't know, however you determine that. A lot of people took that to indicate that Damani Jackson was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to hit the transfer portal. I'm transferring to Michigan. And I looked, and I wasn't able to, and maybe this is just me with my social media skills, I wasn't able to find that. I thought that there was some kind of Instagram post where Will Johnson had, I don't know, liked something or other about teaming up. I just didn't see that, or maybe it's been deleted and I didn't see somebody with the screenshot or everything else. I put a little work in on that. I just couldn't find it. The point is that, Michigan's got a lot of opportunities. They only lose Mozzie Smith at defensive tackle and DJ Turner at corner. So thinking about getting a guy like Damani Jackson, you can understand how people would be excited about that. He was very highly rated. Now, the transfer portal closes tomorrow. So this is why I have this rumor up here. His name's being bandied about a lot. Like, oh yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen because of some things that are going on the internet about with emojis and Jackson. But, we'll know by tomorrow. I don't exactly know when that portal, if it's like 4:00 or if it's at midnight tonight or if it's midnight tomorrow. I would guess it would be midnight tomorrow. So maybe, you have until tomorrow night at midnight to have your Damani Jackson dreams of him teaming up with Will Johnson. Now, even though the portal closes, it opens back up after spring ball in May. So there's another chance of the portal popping back open. And look, you want the best players, always a chance. You take a look at it. It'll be exciting. Something to monitor over the next few hours. And then, always looking at the depth chart and going into spring and thinking, all right, maybe that's something that Michigan can do and somebody they can get. So that's it. That's where I'm at. Let's take some feedback from the people on Michigan, whether it's on Harbaugh, what you believe, recruiting, name, image, and likeness, any of it. Travis says that Harbaugh made $10.5 million last season, one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football. Yeah, Travis, that's true. but his base salary was lower than that. He was able to hit and get into, I don't know if that's exactly correct, 10.5, but what he was able to win the Big Ten and get to the college football playoff. Those were nice bonuses that ended up jacking up his salary. This next one is going to be guaranteed. I like, the bonus part. And, if I was Warde Manuel and he showed me, like, I'm going to run a bunch of bonuses out there again. What do you think? Like, hey, what does it hurt to try? Maybe Jim looked at it and said, I get another axe to grind. I go to the college football playoff 2 years in a row, and now they want me to do it again just to make $11 million. I don't know. Now I'm completely making things up. Sam likes the performance-based, economically sound fundamental. Otherwise, you get tucked under the rug. Yes, but you also have to pay the going rate. And it's not like Tucker's way out here at $9.5 million and everyone else is down at $7 million. No, Tucker is way out there. Jim's agent is looking at the top coaches in all of college football. He's looking at Smart and Riley and Dabo. And he's saying he wants to get paid like those guys. And considering that he is now the best, and there's no argument, most accomplished and best coach in the Big Ten, well, he should be the highest paid coach. It's pretty easy to come up with. Sure. That always reminds me of, the baseball fans. I've talked to baseball fans. They're like, well, why don't you just offer a guy an incentive-laden contract, offer him $1 million, but if he does this, give him 10. Right, because other teams are just going to say, hey, here's your $200 million guaranteed. It all sounds good, but, that's not the way it works. Here's OT. He likes it when we just talk about Michigan. So I like, he's going to like today's show. He did not like last Friday's show where I started talking a little bit about the NFL. He did not like that. OT is saying that Ward completely screwed up the Mel Pearson situation. He was holding up name, image, and likeness. He doesn't want to pay Jim. I keep hearing Ward has an ego too. I asked for what? What the hell has Ward done? Well, he kept Harbaugh 2 years ago when the majority of Michigan fans would have moved on from him. And who knows what other athletic directors would have done. But I can tell you this, that if Warde Manuel would have made a move 2 years ago, you really didn't have much of you weren't going to have much of a backlash from Michigan fans. Like they're going to, some people, love Jim Harbaugh and are going to ride and die with him no matter what. But what was going to be the argument? Let's go another 6 years. No, I know what the argument was because I was arguing with people about it. The argument is that people didn't want to go back to Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez. And while Harbaugh couldn't beat Ohio State, nobody was going to beat Ohio State. And why not just go with a guy that can win you some ball games? If he can't beat Ohio State, nobody can. And you don't want to go back to the Hoke and Rodriguez days. So let's just keep going with Jim. That was the argument. The other argument was he's had 6 years. Move on. And that's what the majority of Michigan fans felt at that time. It's revisionist history. And you might have been on one side and now you're on the other. It's all of that. That's what Ward did. You can criticize that Mel Pearson situation all you want. You would have kept Mel Pearson? Is that what you're saying? OT? You would be in a prolonged legal battle right now in the courts. Is that what you wanted to do? I don't know. The easiest route was to move on because all of that went away. That's what he did. You telling me you would have stuck by Mel? What else didn't you like about him? Everybody has an ego. Look, you make a lot of money, you're in a high position, ego comes along with that. You're at Michigan, ego. You've all got it. This part about the NIL and he doesn't want to pay Jim. Yeah, he's trying to negotiate a deal. I don't know what the hold up there. It's hard to believe, Ward, played football, went to Michigan, and now he was just sitting there and like, I'm just gonna keep lowballing Jim. I want all the donations for myself and my own pet projects. I don't want Michigan to get anything, the football. The stadium will fill up. I mean, I don't know. Like that's kind of what people think that Ward. And he's an easy target right now, very easy target. Ward just wants to go out and golf, and he I don't know. That was making things up again. Let's see, couple more here. Eddie agrees with you, OT. People asking about my shirt. This was a Christmas gift. I knows it just now. Hopefully, it'll be fitting a little bit slimmer in the days and weeks ahead. Todd is talking about JJ. He will be interesting next year. Major stride or the same? Well, Todd, I would think that J.J. McCarthy would take a step forward. Quarterbacks, after their first full year of being a starter, he started every game except the opener. And he played really well in all of the games except the final one. And what's that going to do for him? I like McCarthy. The thing about he needed to get that passing game going and he was pressing, but he got it in the nick of time against Ohio State. Pretty good stuff. I like his attitude. I like his skill set. I like his game overall. He, along with Caleb Williams and Michael Penix and May from North Carolina, he's going to be first or second team All-American. I'll put him in front of Penix. The hell. Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy, preseason All-Americans. Or can you only have one quarterback? So I'll put him at second team All-American. I'll put him at first team All-Big Ten. I'll put him at offensive player of the year in the Big Ten. What about Donovan Edwards? What about Blake Corum? That's right. Those are things you're going to have to deal with. One thing about Harbaugh, and maybe he is some like master negotiator and all this, like I said, we're going to have to wait and see, but he's pretty good when it comes down to the accolades and getting everybody and figuring out the carries and everybody going for the team. He's good at that. He'll be fine. You're going to be fine figuring all that out. When your problem is, hey, who's Michigan going to be pushing for Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year? Like, is it going to be McCarthy? Is it going to be Donovan Edwards? Is it going to be Blake Corum? Those are great problems to have. I think, kind of like when you're voting, you get over here and you get some guys that will split the vote sometimes, and then it's able to help somebody else out. So for me, I think that looking at it from a media standpoint, these are the people that are going to be voting for this, they'll say, yeah, I really like Corum, but I really like Edwards too. These guys are going to steal each other's votes. I'm going to vote for J.J. McCarthy. Plus quarterbacks, they usually get that extra shine anyways because they're the most important players on the team. J.J. McCarthy will be your preseason offensive Big Ten Player of the Year. He will also be the one that will be pushed for the Heisman Trophy for the Maize and Blue Review. Now, Michigan's identity is going to be running the football, and if he doesn't throw it that much, he could get passed up by one of those two. There's no doubt about that. But if you're worried or thinking about that, or you're just a big Michigan fan and like stuff like that, that's how that's going to play out. Thanks, Sam. Hit that like button. I like when I go and look after the show, and you may not know this, but I put down what we're talking about. And so you're able to sift through it if you want to go through and, oh, he's talking about basketball there, whatever. I do a rundown in the show. I do that both on the podcast and on YouTube. But I see how many people have hit the like button. And so if somebody does hit the like button, I'm like, I like that. I like that. Not to sound like Kirk Cousins, but I do like that when you hit the like button. I also like when you subscribe to the Maize and Blue Review podcast. I also like when you comment and rate. You know what I don't like? I listen to podcasts myself, and maybe I should do more of this. But when they're just hammering you all the time, like, subscribe, rate. It's like, okay, you've already said that like 4 or 5 times. If I like it, I'll like it. And I'll probably subscribe. But, those guys have more subscribers than me and more likes and more ratings. So maybe I should say it more often. Scott wants to go back to the TCU game. Let's do it. He says, unfortunately, our great offensive line was horrible against TCU after being awesome all season long. Yeah. How do you explain that, Scott? I'm having a hard time with that one. Did the game and how it played out, Michigan went right down the field and they, went to the Philly not so special, and then they got into a game. There's a pick six, and so they were unaccustomed to being in the situation, so that threw them off a little bit. And the 3-3-5 and TCU is sky high because the nature of the game and how it was playing out, and that put the offensive line into the whole team into an unfamiliar situation. That's got to be part of it. Michigan was turning it over. They were turning it over. They couldn't really run the ball, which was a surprise. The defense was a surprise. That game was a torture chamber. There has not been a game, and we'll have to wait maybe until the summer to revisit that. But I'll have to go back. I've got my watch, and it's got all of the, the particulars, heart rate, and, all the things. I'm going to guess I'm going to need to do that. I'll have my data from every day and everything, and we'll see, where the heart rate's at and everything else. But then we'll look and we'll say, 4 o'clock, New Year's Eve. All of a sudden, it's going to be way up into the red zone. Woo! Way up. Oh, my God. You might have to go to the hospital. It was roller coaster all over the place for that game. I don't know how. I don't know. There had to be a lot of people there that had to do that really needed some, calming effect in that game. Remember at halftime, hey, Michigan's a second half team. That was the only thing, you said that too. Things didn't look very good at all at the halftime. If it had been some other season, you said this thing's over. They're cooked. But since they had been this great second half team, you're like, they're a great second half team. The punters saying that Harbaugh was okay with staying at Michigan. Happy with the prospect of coaching in the NFL. He perceived the opportunity to upgrade the program and fulfill promises because he had the leverage. All right, punters. I mean, that's the Michigan narrative. Let's go. LFG into the offseason. That's what was happening. Why go right to, this is my question about that though, punters. Why go right to the deal maker? Why not try a bunch of other things that doesn't put you in the crosshairs of people saying, this guy broke his promise? Why not have your agent work a couple different angles behind the scenes with some people in the media and say, this is what he wants, this is what he needs, and have people do that work for you? Why jump right to the end and say, you know what? Let's play our card. Let's play our big card. We're out. Damn it. Call up the Panthers. Get the Broncos on the computer. We're out. Why not try some of that other stuff first? That's the part. Because they didn't do that. I would think that. Is that what he was telling his agent? Was the agent just like, oh, we don't like what we're getting. We're stonewalled. Let's go right. Let's play hardball right away. Let's, forget about Jim. Forget about all this other stuff. Let's play our ace. That's the way you do it. Is that the art of negotiations? When you have Jim Harbaugh? Let's get right down to it. Let's play our big card here. Jeremy's playing his big card. His big card says Jim is the ultimate competitor who wants to win championships. I agree with that. In the NFL, everyone has to follow the same rules. Jim is doing this with a low budget for assistants, academics, and name, image, and likeness. Yeah, well, let's not make it sound like, Michigan's some like poverty and anything else. And they have kicked it up academic-wise where they look like they can get in with some transfers, so that's different. Their coaches, like, how could there be some kind of sticking point? This is the part I don't understand. Sure, you lowball them, you put the contract out there, but when Jim's like, look, he holds out his hand. He says, see the championship ring? I got one just like that from the year before. You want another one? We got to pay our assistants. They deserve, like I deserve to be the highest paid coach of the Big Ten. They deserve to have the highest assistant coaches' salaries in the Big Ten and in the country. How is that even not being negotiated? No, what? That seems obvious. So I don't know about that. What kind of negotiation? Like, again, you put it out there if you're Ward, but when Harbaugh's like, what? When his agent's like, we're winning. This is a Ward. It's 2022, not 2020. Let's check your calendar. You want to be respectful. Say it respectful, not like that. But, Jeremy's acting like Michigan's in the poverty. They've got a low budget for assistants. I don't think that's true. The academics, that's changed. Look at how they did in the transfer portal this year. And now NIL. And we're going to find out about that. That's going to be the deal breaker for everything. They start raking in top 100 players and 5 stars. Over. Everybody that hates Michigan, they're going to really hate him. If Michigan starts getting the players, Michigan starts getting players like Georgia, look out. Championships are going to happen. Santa, here's a Santa feedback from Dave. Great decision by Santa. Take the lead. We'll never get another Jim Harbaugh again. Santa is real. Mark says Donovan was completely happy and on board with Blake's return. I haven't seen that story yet. I can't wait to see it now. How many coaches have had the success Harbaugh has had in both the NFL and the NCAA? Let's put up the numbers now. 0. The way Harbaugh has done it. Jimmy Johnson, this is Jimmy Johnson talking about the bobble when Miami was up and he was on the sideline, worked over the ref. Jimmy Johnson was great at the U. That was as nasty as you wanted to get it back when you were in the 80s. Jimmy Johnson won at the U, and then he went to the pros, and he was great. So there are guys that have gone to college, and then and Pete Carroll flamed out in the NFL and went back to USC, and then he went to the pros again. He's been kind of the closest one there with Harbaugh. Although Pete Carroll needed to go to USC and reestablish himself. The difference is Harbaugh could have gotten a job likely right after that 8-8 season with the 49ers. Certainly to the next cycle, he could have. So I'm going to say 0. Scott, doesn't happen. Georgia is what's standing between Michigan and a natty. Let's see. Somebody talking about some closet Ohio State fans being in the chat here today. Good quarterbacks throw picks sometimes. What's up, John? John getting in late. All of you that are on the feedback right now, if you guys ever want to have some fun and you want to join the show and say something, like certainly you can type up the feedback, and I appreciate that. I like it. But you can go to Twitter. I don't know why I said it like that. You can go to Twitter. And I try to remember every day now. I've only done it once in a while up to this point, but I try to just fire up the Twitter spaces, and you can go on there, raise your hand, and be like, and I'll just punch you up. You can start talking. A few people on there right now. You want to talk about Michigan? Put your hand up. Let's go. I'd actually enjoy it a little bit. I mean, I'll start pushing more. I am. Once I get to February, and if I can remember to do it every day, then I can start telling people, hey, let's get in here. I want to hear from the folks. Not just hear me talking the whole time. I want to hear Richard on the phone. A lot of you guys are at work. I mean, it's not like you sit around going, hey, get rid of Warde Manuel. I wanted to say something about Santa. Guy in the next cubicle is going to be like, what's he talking about? Santa. Okay. Sam is actually putting the quotes up from M Live. Let's just see. I don't know if Sam is not. Let's just read it. He says, I'm excited. It has its and Edwards said of Quorum's return. It has its pluses and minuses. I'm sorry. Let me try it over. I'm excited. It has its pluses and minuses, Edwards said of Quorum's return. I wanted to see him go to the NFL. Not having him another 250 plus carries on his bodies, I wanted to see him get paid right away. And that's positive. He's looking out for his boy. His boy's getting paid. He's getting taken care of. But, I can hear what he's saying there. Count 22 is talking about JJ getting better for next year. Says with an off season, it's going to be lethal. He will silence a lot of people. Yeah. I am, he took some criticism in the semifinal, the 2 pick sixes. I get that. He gets that. I think he's able to move on. You see his makeup. I think that the silent aspect, there's silence, come back to silence people. Some people thought, criticizing him for standing and watching the celebration, that's a motivator. Would you rather have him put his head down and walk off the... No. Did you stay around watching all the confetti fly around in the air after the semifinal? That's a question for the summer. We've come up with at least 3 or 4 questions today that we'll be getting in through the summer. It's the one thing about this show. Everybody has a show during the season where they're, hey, let's talk about the games. We'll be doing this once it's warm out. Once we get into the spring and people are, talking baseball, we're going to be talking about the 2 deep at guard. This looks pretty good, actually, right now. We'll be talking about the spring game a month before and a month after the spring game. I'll be going to the spring game if Harbaugh lets me. If he lets anybody, it's not like I'm going to sit out in the stands. I was there last year. It was awesome. I'm looking forward to it again. At this point here, I have people seeing if there's anybody new running through anything, because a lot of people are talking amongst themselves, and I've kind of lost it there, which I'm sorry about. William says you don't need 18, 19 carries apiece. Edwards can be way more involved in the passing game. Nice point, William. You could put him out there at wide receiver, put him into the slot. We could still call him the one-armed bandit, but that'll just be in reference of last year when he was great against Ohio State. It's a great point, really. William, very, very nicely done. There should be plenty of touches. You don't have to get the carries if you're Corum. Get Edwards, and what's going to make him more valuable in terms of the NFL? They'll be like, oh, this guy ripped off 75 and 85 yards against Ohio State in the fourth quarter to win the game last year. Now he's split out, and not only is he an outstanding running back, but now he's doing like he did when he was a freshman against Maryland, catching 10 balls for 170 yards. I mean, maybe this guy's a first rounder. Maybe Donovan Edwards is a first rounder. I need to get rid of some of that. Sometimes you get some bad weight. Sometimes you have a good weight. You try to drop some of that bad weight. William, you're all over it, man. William's having a really good show today. Really good on the feedback. Eddie's talking about recruiting. He wants to start getting some Ohio kids, get some Ohio offers. I think Clink's on that. I'm ready for some of that too. I am, man. Let's do it. Okay. Everybody, thanks for watching the show. We'll be here tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We are thinking about already Thursday with Michigan with a big basketball game. That is going to take place at Maryland. Wolverines looking to go for 2 wins in a row. That's pretty exciting. What else do we have to look forward to in the sports world? Am I maybe going to take a day or two off here? I watched all the. I know this OT doesn't like me talking about non-Michigan things. I watched all the playoff games. It was pretty, it was enjoyable. Watching Tom Brady last night was not so enjoyable. Tom can play for the Raiders and the Jets or the Saints or the 49ers. If it doesn't work out with Purdy, you probably throw another 3-4 teams in there that would like Tom Brady to come back. But I think for me, Tom Brady's going to be 46 years old in August. I watched him last night. I think Tom, I know he wants to go out with a Super Bowl. I know that. That's the only thing that I know, that he wanted to or wants to go out with a Super Bowl. And now maybe that's just what he's just going to keep playing. He's going to try to play till he's 50. I don't know. I think that he should just ride off into the sunset, into the broadcast booth, is the greatest of all time. That's my recommendation for Tom Brady. Who knows about a predict? I mean, does it matter if I have a prediction? I predict that he's in the broadcast booth next year. I predict that I will be in the Peach Mountain Studio broadcast, the Peach Mountain broadcast studio tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll talk with you then. We continue this conversation on the Maize and Blue Review posting board, the Den. We'll see you over there. Till tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.